So welcome everyone to the next session right before the winter holidays of the Keptn community. Today we have a well-packed agenda. Now I'm trying to share my screen. You should be able to see it. So David, do you want to introduce yourself or you don't want to wake up other people around?
I think he said that he was going to be on European time this week. I don't know why, but
That's not David, that's Gerald.
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Who's not here, right?
who's not here yet, no?
Okay, maybe he'll show up. Never mind.
Okay, but so maybe let's start a bit with the news from the Keptn long-term support version 1.0.0. We are now working towards have some performance improvements. In particular, how we interact with the Git repository. We are reworking our data flow model in order to reduce the amount of connection that we have towards the Git repository. So expect a PR to improve the performances around January. And that will be released with 1.1.0. And for the toolkit, as always, I would like to remind everyone that we have, where is it? Let's go directly in the repository. We have a project where you could follow what we have planned for our roadmap. And right now for version 5, we want to consolidate the examples and bootstrap the documentation of the lifecycle toolkit, which is lifecycle.keptn.sh. Here you could see the new documentation for the lifecycle toolkit. It's still work in progress. So if you want to try out the lifecycle toolkit and you see that some parts are missing, you're welcome to propose a PR to support us in documenting the different things. Then we want to improve the dashboarding that we provide with Grafana out of the box, so you can have better observability about what's happening behind the scene for your deployments. Then we want to improve how you can install the lifecycle toolkit with not only a manifest, but also providing customization via Helm charts. And then work towards making your application restartable. This is what we planned for the upcoming months after the Christmas holidays. Any questions from the community?
No, just maybe one quick question, because you mentioned the holidays. I know a lot of us, European-based at least, are probably off starting this Friday for 2 weeks. Is this also the case for the Keptn community, or do we know who is going to be here in case people have questions on Slack?
From the core team, from the maintainers, there should always be someone around.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Okay,
not
that's cool.
during, the 25th of December and New
Yeah.
Year's Eve, but
Yeah.
most of the time there is always someone around.
Awesome.
Then I think, Mac, this topic is yours.
Oh, or somebody, or Andy, do you just want to take the? Do you want to start yours here? Do you want me to do the basics? And
Yeah,
you want to
no,
get?
I
Go.
think I'm happy to start. I try to create something and prepare something. Let me share my screen. Screen numero uno. David liked it that I used my Italian.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Very good Italian.
That's amazing. Let me know if you can see my my Keptn screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So one of the things that I want to highlight, and we all have seen this, right? We at KubeCon, when we were all on stage and kind of all when we were presenting Keptn Beyond 1.0, sailing into the future, I think it was a good presentation on showing where we are and where we head to, but it also caused a couple of people to say what's really going on now, right? And I just highlighted two of the conversations we had on Slack. We had many more, but I highlighted these two, Gerald and Daniel. Right, Gerald felt like Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit loses the multi-stage delivery aspect. Why can't I use Keptn for what I want, dev, stage, production? And Daniel similar, like some confusion on, does this mean Keptn 1.0 is dead? Are we deprecating it? What's happening? And we had long discussions with Daniel and his team. Daniel is working for a large bank in Europe, and they are currently really investing a lot into what's the next big thing from a continuous delivery perspective. And they really saw Keptn as kind of, as he says here, the umbrella that can give full state and visibility into continuous delivery from first commit to production. And as you can see here, I was also a little bit sad if his assumption were correct. So now we had a lot of discussions with them, and I think we all learned a lot. And I'm sorry that my animations here are not perfect, but I tried to put something together on what I learned at least, and what I in all these discussions, I think shows what the lifecycle toolkit can do and how we can actually address some of these things and how we can get some clarity. So what I pointed here on the bottom is dev staging prod, what many people are asking, and especially those that are going full GitOps, meaning you're using Argo, using Flux or whatever it is, right? You start with a git commit that deploys into dev, and then the idea with Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit is that through the pre and post deployment tasks, you can actually achieve exactly what you want. That means you can do your functionality checks by executing some functional tests. You can do dependency checks. That's basically what also Thomas showed in his KubeCon talk. You can do performance validations, because we do provide the ability to validate metrics against Prometheus or Dynatrace or any other data source, because we have the evaluation task. The great thing about this is we are pushing then the results of this through OpenTelemetry and some metrics to your visibility tool or your observability tool of choice. And this means it doesn't stop here, because one of the things we can do as part of the kind of post-deployment task is we can also think of promoting that change into the next stage by creating a pull request. Now, this is not implemented yet, but with the task, it's all possible. And I know, Giovanni, correct me if I'm wrong, this is planned, at least it's on the roadmap, that we provide tasks that can then actually promote that change to the next Git repository. Right? And if you follow this model, right, it's the same thing. In every stage, we can promote the change. We can use our tasks to actually really do the multi-stage delivery. But the big benefit, and this is what everybody said, you want to have an end-to-end visibility across all stages. And what we achieve with the Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit by using open observability standards like OpenTelemetry, we give you, through a trace, an end-to-end view from first commit all the way to production. One of the things that I didn't put in here, but I should probably, we also thought about how can we start already a trace maybe with the first initial Git commit. That means the trace could start even earlier, and then Keptn could take over that OpenTelemetry span ID and then really do an end-to-end, full end-to-end trace. The benefit of this is, instead of having to look at maybe multiple Keptn 1.0 instances in the bridge, which was always a question, how do we do cross stages and cross clusters? With this, I think we solved this problem, which means you can actually look at all of the data in your tool of choice, whether this is Grafana, Dynatrace, Honeycomb, Datadog, or whatever it is. So I think this, I try to illustrate in discussions with these people that had questions on what can be done with the lifecycle toolkit. One other thing that I didn't mention, I think it was Daniel and also Gerald. He said, "Hey, in Keptn 1.0, I really like the separation of concerns between processes and tooling, but now you force me to put the process into my deployment definitions as pre and post deployment tasks." But this is also not in conversations we then figured out further. First of all, when you define tasks as pre-employment deployment task, you're referencing it by name, and the task itself is deployed separately. That means you have a separation of concern. What is the task, let's say, Notify really doing? Plus, with our application definitions, you can really separately of your deployments control what should happen in the app context. And I think, especially the last conversation we had with Daniel and his team, that bank, they really said, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And really, if everything works as we discussed, it could really solve their problem of getting end-to-end multi-stage visibility the promotion, and the separation of concerns. So this is kind of like my high-level overview of what I've learned. I think what we've learned in the discussion. And Giovanni, I want to just quickly actively bring you in. I think that pretty much everything that is on here, at least works in theory, also practically. The only thing that practically, I guess, doesn't work yet is the promotion, even though
Yeah,
we can probably implement it. Yeah.
exactly. At the moment, we
Yeah.
don't provide a out-of-the-box this functionality, but we have
Mhm.
it in the roadmap for the next year to start working on providing this for you.
Yeah. And then another thing that was that probably, I mean, I'm really fascinated about the power of our JavaScript or TypeScript-based tasks. Some people have asked though to also provide something similar to the job executor, where you can actually execute containers. I think that's also right.
We have also that in the roadmap, yes. The idea
Mm-hmm.
is to support Node.js, Python, which are the
Mm-hmm.
most prominent scripting languages that everyone is using now, but
Mm-hmm.
also containers. So you can specify your own image and then we can run it as part of the task phase.
Mm-hmm. Great. And just to let you know what the next steps in the discussions we had, and I have to come back to Daniel and his team, because we had, I think, three of his team members on the call with Thomas and myself. They are going to now look into this, and in early January, once Europe is back from the holidays, also Thomas will work directly with them and really try to get this implemented, and then also see where are things still missing. So there's close collaboration on this. So this is kind of like what we've learned from these discussions. Now, another thing is, and again, fortunately, I was never hired as a web designer, but this is kind of like what the next thing, kind of my idea on how we can maybe redesign the website, and maybe the first thing on the GitHub page, because people are asking, so what is the right Keptn for me? And the way I envision it and would like to get feedback is, first of all, we need to explain what Keptn, the project, is really all about. The project is about providing observability into your deployments, enforcing checks pre and post deployment, validating that your deployments are healthy through SLOs, and orchestrate whatever else other tools you have. The question is now how and where to get started. And this really depends on who you are and what tools you have. And I think there's two options where we want to drive people towards. The first option is the Lifecycle Toolkit. The Lifecycle Toolkit, however, really only makes sense if you are fully cloud native and you're fully committed to GitOps, because this is where the Lifecycle Toolkit shines. If you're using Argo, if you're using Flux or any other tool that provides a GitOps model in Kubernetes, then the Lifecycle Toolkit gives you automated pre and post deployment checks, and then exposes all the data through OpenTelemetry. That's kind of my, hey, you are using Argo, you already have you have an observability platform as well that can consume OpenTelemetry, then Lifecycle Toolkit is a great start. Option 2 would then be if you're not GitOps, right? If you're not fully GitOps, because as we know, we tried with Keptn V1 to kind of add GitOps to Keptn, but it was never centered around GitOps. But there's a lot of users out there that are in that stage where they just need, Keptn with customizable sequences, as we call them, to automate and orchestrate a couple of tasks, either around delivery or remediation. This is where Keptn V1 is perfect for. And then there was also questions, can we combine the two? You can. You can use the Lifecycle Toolkit if you're fully GitOps, and then if you really like some of the flexibility that Keptn V1 gives you with customizable sequences, if you like this approach better, or whatever other reason you have, then we can also, and again, Giovanni, correct me if I'm wrong, we could have Keptn Lifecycle Toolkit through a JavaScript task, then trigger a sequence in Keptn V1. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Since the Keptn V1 has APIs, it's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to control from the toolkit the new
Yeah.
task that you want to trigger in the Keptn
Yeah.
V1.
Then one thing I want to show you is, I forgot to post it here. So as I said, unfortunately, nobody ever hired me to become a web designer because it looks ugly. But what I did is, because Alois asked me, because this has to be also discussed, I think, in the governance board, I created a Git issue for that. And very happy to get feedback. And I think this feedback will then also help. I'll post the link in with my chat window. So this is the Git issue that I created on the Keptn website repo. Exactly with that, and then provide feedback. This will help the governance, but also to make a decision, and then whoever then needs to implement this. All right, to then come to kind of like what is still open, and I think Giovanni, this is where I would like to, I guess, bring you in and everybody else, Moritz and whoever else is on the call now to can chime in with some answers. A couple of questions that are still lingering around, and I think we answered some of them already, but just like these are those that I would like to quickly discuss. So what happens with Keptn V1? What is planned?
Yeah, I already provided a bit of answer already before with a glimpse of the roadmap. We are working towards making performance improvements to the overall Keptn project. And anyway, we have still some open feature issues in the backlog, and we will tackle them.
Mhm.
On the
I
UI
think,
side, however, we don't plan to invest more. So we are planning to invest more in the functionalities of the Keptn itself, not the UI.
Do you know, Giovanni, are there any key capabilities or features that people have asked for that you think would be great to have, but currently we don't have it on our radar, and maybe we want to ask somebody for support, and also, right, we want to grow the community, we want to get more contributors?
For Keptn B1, I have to be honest that we don't have many good first issues, but it's something that we are planning to look into, especially for me during these winter holidays. I will go over the repository, mark as many tickets as possible with good first issues to support the community to get into easy tasks that they can contribute to.
Mhm.
But on top of my head, I don't have any feature that we need community support. But we are open to discussion. If you want to work on a specific service like improving the webbook, which is a very small service, just contact
Mhm.
us over the public Slack. We're
Mhm.
happy to support you.
I agree. I think Keptn V1 is really now in a state where the people, at least that I know, right, this is the people that we interact with in the community. We also have a lot of Dynatrace customers that are using Keptn V1, and for the use cases that they use it, it's mainly about the SLO evaluation, and then a lot of them are also combining it with executing tests, and most of them are executed through the job executor. And I think for that, Keptn V1 is perfect. And I mean, perfect under quotes. There's always stuff we can do, but I think it does a really great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Next question. What's planned for the Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit evaluation tasks? Are we getting something similar to Keptn V1 SLOs, or what's the plan here?
Yeah, the idea is eventually to enhance the SLO supports because Keptn V1, I guess, has one of the best SLO implementation that you can do multiple things like scoring, put weights on different SLO evaluations that currently are not supported in the Lifecycle Toolkit. And the idea is to improve on this side as well. At the moment, we don't have anything in the backlog because we want to focus on more other tasks, but it's something for sure that we want to invest and bring the lifecycle toolkit up to speed with what Keptn V1 provides for SLOs.
Is there a good way to capture? I mean, I think we know what we should put into the evaluation tasks. As you said, with weights and everything. But should we create an issue to get some feedback on what people really want? Because maybe, right, we have been working in this for that many years. Maybe we think this is an important feature, but maybe it's not, or maybe there's other things we've kind of not, we don't have on our radar.
Yes, from the backlog of Keptn V1, there was always an open issue to support multiple SLI providers for different SLOs. And that's something that we already cover with the lifecycle toolkit because
Okay,
each
yeah.
different SLOs can be, the SLI part can be fetched from a different provider. But generally how the SLOs should work, I think that's a good idea to provide an issue for the community so they can provide feedback.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, maybe a GitHub discussion would be the right thing for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And I think this would then also kind of could be a good way to discuss the next question, any status on OpenSLO support, right? Because OpenSLO is a community that we have engaged with over the last year since they started, but we've at least with Keptn V1, we had a different vision and approach to SLOs because we were using SLOs not for like production monitoring and error budgets and everything, but we were using them for quality gating.
Yeah, I think going forward, we are much closer now to OpenSLOs than we were before because they were using or they are specifying things similarly to our customer resource, which would be perfect for our use case in the lifecycle toolkit. So the idea is to, of course, involve or try to get into the community. Um, but since we have this general way of having different providers for evaluating your SLOs, maybe we can have also an ad hoc provider that supports exactly OpenSLO specifications.
Mhm. I actually now think of it, I think OpenSLO, if I'm not mistaken, they have a reference implementation that they called Oslo. And I think there's actually a command line tool. And if I'm, and again, I guess I haven't looked that closely to it, but this could be an interesting way to say you can just execute Oslo as part of a post deployment task.
Yeah, this also might be a very good first issue for the community,
Yeah.
where a community member can look into how we can integrate in OpenSLO.
Yeah.
Uh, but also we have in plan, you might have seen the epic that we created to also enhance a bit the SLI part of Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit. The idea is to provide a generic metric server for Kubernetes. So you can fetch your data from your observability platform,
Mm-hmm.
and we speak the Kubernetes language. So other integration of Kubernetes can make use of that. So you can use Keptn LifeCycle Toolkit also as a source for metrics that you can use afterwards for your HPA, so horizontal pod autoscaler, for any
Mm-hmm.
KDE integration, other tools.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah. So I think as a to kind of wrap maybe this topic up, we should have some discussions, and I think a good first issue would be to look into calling any type of OpenSLO implementation from Keptn. That would be good. And then I really like the Kubernetes metrics server because this opens up the data that we fetch to other use cases that are native to Kubernetes. Next question. Why don't we have more tutorials on Keptn V1?
That's my.
Was up. Please, Meg.
Yes. The reason we had so many a few months ago was that they'd been done in 11. Some of them were done in 8, release 8 or 0.8, some in 0.11. They hadn't been updated. Tutorials are extremely resource intensive to create and maintain. And the ones that we had were so far behind that we now have one good one that gets people started, and then and anybody who wants to step up what we are asking, if you want to add a tutorial, you also commit to maintain it. And we have one group now, Litmus Chaos, has updated their tutorial and it's up there, and they will be keeping that up to date. We would love to have more tutorials but for the general, we think we can do good information. What I found out was that people were using the tutorial. The tutorials were supposed to just give you a light look at what Keptn could do, and people were trying to set up their production environments using those instructions, and then running into problems. And this is really not what they should be doing anyhow. So we've been concentrating more on getting the documentation up to snuff to actually go through that you have to do this and you have to do this, and if you want this you need to do this at this stage, etc. And then also embedding small video demos rather than something that you have to get set up, etc. So, for instance, there's a 3-minute video on how you create a project and create a service that it's going to use. Um, so that's what we're doing right now. It's not that we have anything against tutorials, and we would love to have more if people would like to come in and do them. We'd also be interested. My sense is that what if we did have more uh, if we had more tutorials, we need more on advanced ones. Like for instance, I'd like to have a really good tutorial up there on creating good SLIs and SLOs, or working with your some more advanced topics. We had was like 10 different versions of how you get started with Keptn, which seemed redundant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the answer there.
Mm-hmm. And Meg, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the Killer Coda tutorial on Keptn V1, and I think there's also one on LifeCycle Toolkit at least planned, or is it already done?
I think it is underway. I think we just got somebody to step up to want to do it, and they're starting on it. We also, for Keptn V1, we do have a nice tutorial for Litmus Chaos, which has been recently updated and is being updated. So,
Cool. Awesome. So I think that if I hear this correctly, it's better to have one good tutorial to show people how to get started with Keptn V1. If we need more, people want more tutorials, we need people to step up to make sure that these tutorials also stay maintained, because otherwise we end up with 20 tutorials and 18 of them are outdated all the time.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
And they aren't the tutorial. The point of the tutorial is see how easy this is, which is a good way to get started. When you get into really setting things up, you should be looking at real documentation that tells you watch out for this, and at this stage, run this to verify that you're okay, etc. And that is, we are putting more and more of that into the documentation. We still have work to do, but and love to have feedback from anybody too. That's this is my opinion, and your mileage may vary. So.
Awesome. Then moving on to the next one, this is very specific to the Keptn community that are also using Dynatrace, because we have a lot of people obviously that are using Dynatrace, and many of them are asking, can we have just a lighthouse feature, kind of like as a standalone version, because they don't necessarily need full-fledged Keptn, but really just like that capability. Giovanni, I think there is at least a bit on this.
Yes, I was speaking with Jörg, the maintainer of the Dynatrace service, the other day, and we were thinking to create maybe a CLI, so do kind of a hackathon together to have a proof of concept of a standalone Lighthouse Dynatrace integration to see how it can work. And this also solves many use cases, such as running a quality gate directly into your Jenkins pipeline, since you have everything in a CLI.
Yeah, exactly. And that means you can just call the CLI natively on your, let's say, Jenkins agent, or package it in a container, I guess, and then run it even as a GitHub action very easily without then the dependency and without needing the full-fledged Keptn. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it would be, keep us posted on this. I think this would this become then a sub project on, I guess, Keptn GitHub? Or would this just be something for Dynatrace because it's very Dynatrace specific?
We didn't agree on anything at the moment. We just agreed that we will make this open source, so anyone can be, step up and contribute more if they need more.
That's awesome, yeah.
Where it would be, hard to say at the moment, but for sure we will advertise that when we have the first proof of concept in place.
Cool. So this is for all of the Dynatrace users that are listening, especially those that are using Dynatrace managed, because for SaaS customers, we do have an offer anyway to bring the Keptn capability to you as a SaaS service. But for managed customers, this is good news. Last question: can I combine KLT with Keptn V1? I think we mentioned this earlier in my overview slide. That's clearly possible, but I think it only makes sense if your core approach is GitOps and you're deploying everything already, because this is where where KLT makes most sense, and then you can from there trigger Keptn V1 sequences, for instance, if you really need sequences and the you want the visualization in the bridge. Yeah. Awesome. So I think this is this was it from me. I hope that it answers a couple of the questions and gives some clarity on what people have struggled with, and especially if I go back to this here, right? I think this is a this is what's possible with the lifecycle toolkit. But the lifecycle toolkit is not for everyone, but it's for those that are moving to Kubernetes, that are doing GitOps, and that have a way and are comfortable with OpenTelemetry, Prometheus, with all open observability standards. And this is, it seems the world is moving towards that. That's why we believe this is the future.
David, since you're our outside person here, do you have any questions? Can represent all users. Oh,
That's okay. It's 3 o'clock in the morning for him
that's true.
at the moment now. Yeah.
For the moment, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
David, after you've processed this, and if you have any feedback, you know where to find us. Just ping us on Slack. Feedback is very welcome. Good. Then I'll stop my sharing.
And then okay, so from the last point of the agenda is community. Please help us. It's a call for action from me to the community. In the next days, I will try to look into good first issues that you can work on. And one cool thing, especially, would be to support us on the documentation side. Since the Lifecycle Toolkit is very new, we don't have a very good documentation in place. So if the community start to play with that and see that the documentation is not up to date or doesn't cover everything, please don't be afraid to raise a PR to fix that. That would be very good. But also I will try to create new issues that should help you to get into the project, so you can then contribute more and more, and then hopefully one day become also a maintainer of the Keptn V1 or the Lifecycle Toolkit. In particular, for the Lifecycle Toolkit, I would like to have from the community more contribution towards different observability providers. At the moment, we support Prometheus and Dynatrace, and this code to support an observability platform, it's not too hard. So I think it's a good entry point for the community to get into the project. And it would be cool also to have support for Datadog, Sumo Logic, New Relic, Honeycomb, other observability platforms that are around the world. And also, I think this one from Meg that provided that one issue was already assigned to
Yeah,
improve the
so
documentations for the
you
installation.
assigned it. Somebody else has already submitted a PR. Yeah,
Oh, very
community
cool.
member. Yeah.
So let's give a shout out to the, oh gosh, it's a hard name for me to say. So Shardulus Srivastava. Okay, I embarrassed myself in front of everyone. Thanks a lot for supporting us.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think we are at the end of the agenda.
And I just in chat, I asked, David has started implementing KLT and he just posted to Slack. He's run into some issues and he says he's game. So, David, do you want to take it over? Are you able to unmute yourself, by the way?
Oh, maybe
Oh,
we need to grant him permissions with this tool.
oh, I wondered why he wasn't speaking. Have we muted him?
No, we need to. Every host has to grant permissions to new people.
Ah,
Oh, that's me then. Is that me? I guess I look
I
like
already grant him permissions now.
yeah.
okay.
Now, David, you should be able to enable your mic.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
perfect and clear.
Hi.
I'm so sorry you
Nice
didn't
to
have
meet
that
you.
earlier. I wondered why you were.
No, no problem, no problem. Okay, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate your help in the Slack community. There are a lot of things I learned from you guys, and I think that this Keptn toolkit, I think for you our user use case is good because as you say, we want a GitOps approach. So thank you for that roadmap. The problem we have right now, or I have, is maybe I don't know if I am doing something bad, is that the task, for example, first of all, I use the pre-evaluation and it works great with Prometheus, and then I want to use some pre-deployment, no, just pre-deployment task evaluation. For example, I'm using your example that you have that check the endpoint and in the of the service. Uh, I don't know why, but my pods stay as I put the issue in the help in the Slack. They stay not ready. I don't know if that will happen because I'm using Istio in the same namespace. I don't know if that's something I have to do. I don't know.
Mm.
Uh,
I've I think I've responded to one of your things with because in the example, the
Mhm,
task that Thomas specified is referenced from a file on GitHub.
mhm.
And I'm just wondering if your setup, and especially your Istio, if your egress is actually allowing outbound connections to that. Because if you look at the task definition, right, you can specify tasks either with inline code, where the code sits within your CRD, or where you
Mhm.
can reference an external resource. And if it's external, um, it needs to be downloaded. And the question is, can your Kubernetes cluster in that namespace, are you allowed to download external resources from GitHub?
Uh, yes, I have. I am allowed, and I don't know why it stays in not ready in the downloading stage because I made another test. I only use the console log for only to say, okay, this is stage, and it's the pod. It always stay in not ready. Yeah, not ready state. I don't know if I will better send you in the Slack what I did because right now I'm sorry, but I cannot show you my cluster because
That's fine.
it's a test cluster. We have it off,
mhm.
so we have turned it off. So I cannot show you right now, but I will write you
Should we pull
uh,
up what you
in the
posted to
Slack.
Slack? Should we pull up what you
Yes,
posted to Slack?
Just posted the link to the Slack
Yeah.
message.
okay.
There we go.
Can I
Thank
just
you.
ask what version of Kubernetes you're using?
I'm using one point 2024. That
Okay.
Kubernetes version I'm using. The last, well, I think that's
Mhm.
from your prerequisite. That's the version that we have to
Yep.
use. Another question I have, and well, I think that you mentioned it. It was for the task that we can use a scripting language like Python. You say something like that, right? We can use
Not at the moment. At the moment, we only support TypeScript, but
type.
in the
Okay.
future, we will be
Uh,
TypeScript, Python, and containers.
yeah, because we in the past used Keptn and we had the approach with the job execution because that tool made us a lot of things good for us. So right now only for TypeScripting. Okay. Um, Another question is regarding your support for the Keptn. It I am not I think I'm confused. So I think that you as team you're approaching more to the toolkit than the Keptn, the normal Keptn. That's correct, or I'm not correct?
Tough question.
I think, David, I guess I did a bad job in the beginning explaining everything. Maybe
Ah,
I should explain it again, but I think what we said in the beginning, we see the world moving towards GitOps and Kubernetes, which means we see a better need in investing to a pure GitOps and pure
yeah.
cloud native and Kubernetes native approach, and that's the lifecycle toolkit. This is why we are shifting our focus, because this is where the world is moving towards.
Okay. Okay.
What it doesn't mean is that we are not abandoning Keptn 1.0, because Keptn 1.0 is there, and Giovanni also said earlier there's plans already in the roadmap for a Keptn 1.1 version and for other things, but we are at least shifting priorities. But it's not going away. It's an open source project that stays there. And if you need more things, and this was one of the questions we asked earlier, if you have specific more requirements on Keptn 1.0, then also let us know. And also, because we need to figure out what is still missing. But in general, we believe the future is GitOps and cloud native, and this is
Yeah.
where the lifecycle toolkit is better suited.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. We adopt the toolkit. We are now learning from it because I don't know. I think it's good, but well, the documentation, only that part. Yeah. I need. I think that is good, but well, I share my feedback in the Slack, and well, the problem I had was about the versions because the web page saved one version and the GitHub is using another version, for example, for the definitions task, for example. But okay, that's correct. That's good. Okay. Another question I have. For this approach of the toolkit, that's correct. We well for observability, we will well Grafana. I think it will be the approach, right? Because to see how is the stage going and everything like that, right? Okay.
Yep.
Another okay.
What's your, David, what is your observability tool right now that you use in your organization?
We use Grafana and Dynatrace, but in the for testing clusters, we have the approach with Prometheus, and then when we move to some production, we use Dynatrace because Dynatrace is well, we think is rich in terms of metrics, and um, another okay. Let me see. Well, I think the only issue I have is the task because of what I said. So I will share you well in like I don't know if you will be in 6 hours because today right now we are at 3 a.m. 47. So I will give you well I will share you in the Slack and another thing. Let me know. Only that. Thank you all. Really, I appreciate your help and your time. Really, only that for me.
Thank you so much for getting up that early.
No, thank you for you. Yeah, thank you.
And Giovanni, I tagged you on one of the threads that David posted about the documentation, the version mismatch. And the other one, I just posted the link anyway to the chat.
Yeah, I'm providing with an answer now for that.
Okay. Yes, and the other problem I had, and I shared you the feedback was about for example, my controller pod for the toolkit was crashed. I don't know why, but my other pods from another namespace could not start because they were trying to reach the toolkit. That I think that was a strange case because no one of my, for example, my Argo pods or my Istio pods could start because my controller, my Keptn toolkit controller was crashed, and I don't know because that namespace, for example, my Argo or Istio don't have the Keptn annotation in the namespace, so that was weird. I share you the logs, and that's the other problem I had really, because everything is good. And I I will ask for the Hampshire, but I see I saw the roadmap, so we are good. I know you will implement it. That's good. That's good. And okay, only that. Thank you. Thank you. Well.
Okay, so any last from the chat? There is nothing more. So I think we can close the meeting here. Thanks to everyone involved. It was a great year for Keptn. We have a new cool project that supports GitOps, a major release of Keptn V1. So I think it was a successful year for the Keptn project. And with that, I wish you nice holidays and see you again in January. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.